Hi, I'd like to apply for a small business loan. No problem. Take a seat. Just have a few questions I need to ask you. All right. What is this yellow shit? Oh, that's just some yellow shit. Name? Grambles. Occupation? Mortician. Oh, wow, that's so interesting. Do you like it? I love it. Okay. What is this loan for? Well, I'm gonna pump it into my business. Sir, you're not having sex with those bodies, are you? No. Jeez, that's personal. Are you a U.S. resident? Love corpse? What? I said, of course. Did you? Yes. Address? 3912 Pubic Hair Lane. That's a residential address. You run a morgue out of your house? Well, basement, yes, I told you it's a small business. Are private morgues allowed? Yes, as long as you can get product. So you're definitely not fornicating with these bodies? Nah, man, I've had sex with basically like 0 dead bodies. Okay. Well, according to company policy, any aforementioned mortician hereto therein musteth not for has of intercorpse within therein of decayed or partially decayed bodies of for to there within. So we're all good here. Yeah, because I mean, I've definitely not been doing that, so. All right, sign this blue shit. And this red shit. And that's it. You can pick your cash up in the duffel bag out back. All right, thank you. Absolutely, have a great day. Sir, you're not having sex with those bodies, are you? No. Jeez, that's personal. Sir, you're not having sex with those bodies, are you? No. Jeez, that's personal. Sir, you're not having sex with those bodies, are you? No. Jeez, that's personal. Sir, you're not having sex with those bodies, are you? No. Jeez, that's personal. Are you a U.S. resident? Love corpse? What? I said, of course. Did you? Are you a U.S. resident? Love corpse? What? I said, of course. Did you? Hey, you little butt spankers. Haven't really been around too much. I work for King Soopers and I was on strike here in Colorado, so I kind of had my fill of being outside. So I haven't really been shooting too much, and then I got sick at the tail end of that. So it was just kind of a few weeks of just dog shit. So I'm feeling better. I still haven't been shooting for a few weeks, but I want to get back out there here pretty soon. But this is something I've been wanting to do for a little while. I have 2 different camera types, obviously, as you probably know by now if you watch this channel. I have a Lumix and I have a Sony, and it's an A7 III, so it doesn't have 10-bit or anything, but matching those to use in the same video has always been a pain in my ass. So I figured I'd share with you how I do that. It's not perfect, as you could probably tell, but it definitely gets you a lot closer, and this will really work with any 2 cameras. if you're using Premiere. I generally prefer the Sony colors. I know people say a lot of bad things about the old Sony colors, but honestly, looking at them with vector scopes and stuff, they're actually really accurate, far more accurate than the Lumix colors anyway. So I generally start with the Sony. I'll grade that to get it how I want it to look, and since the Lumix can shoot in 10-bit, that gives you a little more leeway to play around and push the colors to match the Sony. And again, it's not perfect, especially in the reds, as you probably notice. I'm also colorblind, so none of my grades are gonna be perfect no matter what I do, but this technique, it will work. It'll probably work better for you than for me because my brain is dumb and I have a disability basically in my eyes. So I grabbed a couple of these clips. Normally I use 2 monitors, so everything's a little bit cramped to me right now, but it should still work. So right here, I pulled in a couple clips from the initial recording here. There is a way to basically split 2 clips on the screen and sort of do like you can do in Lightroom, where you have like a reference and then a comparison view, I think is what it's called. The way that I'm gonna do it is I'm gonna just select one. I'm gonna go up here to edit. God damn it, you son of a bitch, Premiere. You son of a bitch. So I'll select one, I'll go up here to editing, and then over to effect controls, and I'm just gonna crunch this one down to 50%. And then I'm gonna move it off to the right, which far right is 2880 if it even really matters to you that much. I'll do the same with the other one, 50%, but 960, and that'll push it off to the left side of the screen. So now we can see both of them here. So obviously Sony and Lumix look very different, and it helps to initially try to pick the best picture profiles in camera beforehand, the 2 that might look the closest. So I'm using Cinelike D on the Lumix G9, and I'm using, I think it's Picture Profile 8, which is like S-Log, but without the super low contrast. The Sony shoots in 8-bit anyway, so S-Log is kind of useless unless you want your footage to look even shittier. I'll generally start with the Sony. So we're gonna go up here, we're gonna select the Sony clip, which starts with the C here, color. And again, I would normally be using an adjustment layer here, but it's kind of a pain when you're doing 2 clips at the same time because an adjustment layer will adjust everything below it. So I don't recommend doing this, but I'm just gonna edit the clip itself just for easier explanation of what I'm doing. You can do this with adjustment layers. It's the same exact process. I'll show you how to create those here in a minute if you don't know. So we'll start with the Sony. We're gonna go to the color tab and then over to HSL secondary. And I'll generally start with skin tones because those are the most obvious when it comes to natural looking footage. If the skin tones are off, it's just nothing quite looks right. And the Sony is usually pretty damn close, but we can always check. Grab our little eyedropper here, and that'll select that. And if you click this little color/gray box, it'll show you your active selection. So if we zoom back out here, as you can see, since I have the Sony selected, it's only selecting my range selection, which was kind of skin tones. But using these tools over here, we can see what colors we're playing with, but this shows the Lumix too. So I'm gonna turn the Lumix off. There, now we can only see the Sony colors. And since I want skin tones, it's pulled in some of this background a little bit, which is really close to skin tones, but it's not quite there. So that's where you'll play with these. And this can be a huge pain in the ass. You might just kind of have to finesse it and just get good at it yourself, but generally speaking, it's possible to select any color you want. So you've got hue, saturation, and luminance here. And you can kind of grow these and shrink them based on what color you're looking for. You can kind of get yourself zeroed in on the skin tones. It's a fairly clean selection already here. It's pulling a little bit of this background in, but that's okay. It really doesn't matter that much. I mainly want to focus on this, and it's pretty much the same color as my skin anyway, so we're going to end up editing it no matter what we do. But I mainly want to show you this. This is the vector scope, and this basically shows all the color primaries, and this line right here is a skin tone line. So it's actually really easy. Even though I'm colorblind, I can tell what skin tones are. So as you can see, it's a little off to the yellow side. Usually Sony is pretty close. As long as you nail your white balance, it'll look pretty good. So what you can do now is you can essentially, this color wheel is the same thing as this. So you can, anywhere you pull this, it's gonna pull that with it. So to get this right on that skin tone line, we're just gonna push it back up into the magenta just a little bit. And this can also kind of affect saturation, so don't go too crazy. Use it for correcting, not so much the saturation. At least that's what I do. And then we can go in and just add a little bit of saturation to the skin tones. And it's definitely subtle, since Sony is pretty much spot on all the time anyway. And then you can come up here and rename this one to skin tone Sony. And now we can add another one and start playing with other colors in the scene. But right now I'm gonna go back to the Lumix, and I'm gonna try and get that to match the Sony's skin tone. So now we're on the Lumix, same thing, HSL, we're gonna grab this eyedropper here and select my skin. Turn on the color gray. We'll again turn off the Sony, because since it's all on the same screen, since all we did was adjust the size, we're gonna wanna turn off Sony for now to really get a look at this vector scope over here. And again, we'll just adjust these until we can get the best selection possible. And already you can kind of tell that Lumix tends to favor the yellows in skin tones, which is just not very accurate. I have an orange beard too, so it likes to pull my beard in when I'm trying to do skin tones as well, so I gotta be careful with that. And it looks like this is actually pretty spot on the skin tone line too, so again, as long as you nail your white balance, oh my god. As long as you nail your white balance, you're usually gonna be pretty much okay. So we'll just pull that up just a little tiny bit. Now we can sort of take a look at the differences between the two if we turn the Sony back on here. It's definitely a little bit more saturation in the Lumix, so we can pull that down just a little bit. Sort of meet up with where we left the Sony by increasing it a little bit. But as you can also tell, there's a lot more oranges in the Lumix, especially where this tungsten light was spraying all over the background. The Sony doesn't quite have that same problem, but again, this isn't going to be perfect, but this is the general tools that you would use to do something like this. So essentially, all you really have to do is go through, I just go through color by color, depending on what's in the scene. And I make sure that I put Lumix or Sony up here, so anytime I just glance up here, I know exactly which I'm on, because Premiere likes to auto-select shit for you, which gets pretty fucking annoying if you ask me, but it's literally the process you would do for any color though. So you can then go back to the Sony, add another Lumetri color effect, and it'll make a whole list of them that you can switch between, and we can grab the blues and start refining our selection of that. There's really no solid way I've found to get a good selection. You just kind of have to play with these, and some colors are worse than others. Sometimes it introduces a lot of noise if your selection isn't just right. But essentially this hue one just governs obviously which color, but you can stretch this all the way out and end up selecting every color in the scene. And these are sort of like a feather, so you can really smooth out your selections that way. So sometimes it takes a really long time. Other times you can just use the eyedropper and it'll pretty much get the color every time. But I try to stay away from these auto colors right here, because they tend to just grab all saturation and luminance of the given value, and sometimes that's not what you want. So I tend to just go the slow way and just do it one at a time, painstakingly. That's essentially how that's done though. But using this to refine the selection and get it just right, and then comparing the vector scopes on both cameras, you can literally see which colors are being introduced, which colors. This shows saturation, it shows luminance, it shows everything within this pretty much. I'm not going to go through the whole process, but obviously, as you can tell, we probably should have started with some exposure adjustments. The Sony's usually a lot more contrasty, at least with the picture profile I use. So we can go ahead and raise that up. Maybe bring a little bit of contrast into the Lumix. And darken those shadows down just a little bit to match. And if you pull this over and look at the parade, we can actually see both cameras here, since I've got them both within the same working space here. We got the Sony on the right, Lumix on the left, and you can really see which has the higher highlights, which has the lower shadows. You can see saturation values. So really all it is just playing with these. Maybe when you add a little bit of contrast to the Sony, you'll see it sort of spread out a little bit, and just use your eyes as well. You know, like I can see now that the shadows are quite a bit better matched. And what I often end up doing too is raising the whites just a little bit on the Lumix. For some reason, it's just much lower contrast. I'm not going to go through the whole process of matching these because I'll be sitting here for hours, but that is essentially the whole process. You're just going to go from color to color, and I always create a new color effect for each thing that I'm doing so I can easily go back and change it. What I usually do afterwards is I'll come down here, new item, adjustment layer. And then you could put this over top of everything. Once you kind of get the colors where you want them, then you can sort of apply some effects to tie them both together. And since this adjustment layer is on top of both of our cameras here, everything we put on this adjustment layer is going to affect everything below it, just like in Photoshop. And normally I would use adjustment layers for these coloring tools because everything you can do on one of these cameras, you can do in an adjustment layer, and it'll affect multiple clips, and then you can go back and change it, get rid of it entirely without messing up the original footage. It's a really nice system, but it's also really hard to just apply it to one thing. So like, since this adjustment layer is here, it's going to affect the Sony and the Lumix, and if there's some little things I want to do just with the Lumix, it becomes really difficult to only do one of those, especially when they're stacked on top of each other like this. But there is a way to do that by nesting, but that's not really ideal either, because a nest is basically a rendered out chunk of what you just did, so there's really no way to go back and edit that either. I thought that they were supposed to be introducing an unnest option, but I haven't seen it. So, but anyway, what I'll generally do after color matching them is I'll like put a final layer on top of everything. So if you come up here to creative on the adjustment layer, make sure that's selected. We can increase the sharpening just a little bit, maybe a little vibrance, whatever you want to do to make your footage look how you want it. And then what I usually do is I'll come over here to the curves, and I don't really play with the exposure curve here, but I actually do the red, green, and blue, and I'll just put like a little bit of a filmic sort of matte curve on everything. And unfortunately, in Lightroom, you can do this on the red, copy it, paste it on the green and blue, so you don't have any colors favoring one another, but you can't do that in Premiere. So I have to do it manually, but you can still see the red here, so I'll just try to line them up to the best of my abilities. So by pulling these down in the corners, we're limiting the total brightness and the total darkness. It sort of gives it like a filmy type look. It makes it look a little bit more movie-ish. And then just put like a little bit of an S curve on it as well, just to bring that contrast back in. And we'll just do that with all three colors here. Just trying to get them to match as good as possible. And that's probably the thing I do with every video, because I like the way it looks. As you can see, it just sort of lifts up those shadows just a little bit, and it just gives it this nice soft, filmy type look. Anyway, I didn't want this video to be super long. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm not great at this, at color grading. I'm colorblind and I'm stupid, so I'm not the best at it. But I do think that what I do sort of pulls them together to where they'll at least be able to be used together. I know I didn't deep dive into each and every color or anything, but it really is just the same exact process over and over. Premiere can look really confusing at first, so again, if you have any questions, let me know. I can try to help you in the comments or whatever, but I might also be able to direct you to another video that is made by somebody who's actually good at teaching people things. So hope you guys enjoyed this. We're going to be getting back into the POVs here pretty soon. I really want to get out and shoot. It's also been snowing like crazy, and I am a huge pussy this year after standing out in the cold on strike, so I've just been enjoying my inside time. So I figured I'd make this little stupid sketch that I've had in my head for a while and try to inject just a little bit of knowledge in there too. If you're angry right now because I didn't deep dive enough or teach you how to use Premiere, let me know. Maybe I'll do a follow-up and we can actually go in and from start to finish color match these two cameras to the best of my abilities. It'll be a much longer video though, so you would have to bear with me at that point. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this stupid shitty little video, and I'll see you in the next one.